Dr. T here. Today we are going to continue the discussion on Jennifer's Law that I began on September 10th. Jennifer Magnano was born and raised in Connecticut and described as a kind-hearted and generous individual who was always ready to help others and welcomed everyone with a smile. Jennifer and husband Scott Magnano were married for 15 years and had 2 children together, plus cared for a daughter of Jennifer's from a previous relationship. And each year was described as terror, as Scott subjected Jennifer to several different types of abuse. Beginning early in their marriage, Scott took complete control over every aspect of life. He isolated the family and used an elaborate regime of rules and brutal punishments, humiliations, threats, coercion, cruelty, sexual abuse, and violence to subjugate and control everyone in the family. In March of 2007, Jennifer packed up all the kids and just left while Scott was in the shower. They drove to a hotel and attempted to get help from a shelter, but the oldest daughter was legally an adult at the time and another was male. The shelter was unable to assist. So they took a 3-day train ride to California to a shelter that could take the whole family, where they were safe and began to heal. Jennifer reported all the abuse to the police in Connecticut and filed for divorce and sole custody, but found that Scott had been secretly taking funds from her, limiting her abilities to fight for her freedom. The police did not pursue any charges against Scott. Incredibly, the Connecticut system ignored, dismissed, and neglected Jennifer's reports and charges against her abuser and instead sided completely with Scott. He was given custody of the children, sight unseen, and when a distraught Jennifer begged to stay and fight from California, the Connecticut courts told her she must come back to argue her cases in person. Being a law-abiding person and under threat of arrest and losing her children, Jennifer returned to Connecticut and with the help of a good lawyer, won her divorce, custody, and the family home after a lengthy court battle. Jennifer and her children returned to the house and had the police check the house to make sure that Scott was not there before returning. Scott was not there, and Jennifer and the children ended up cleaning the whole house and going through things that were deemed off limits while Scott had been in the home. The next day, when Jennifer returned home, she noticed things were not how she left them. In the bottom of the house was an apartment where Scott's mother lived. And upon calling the police again to check the house, Scott's mother refused to let them into her apartment. During the late evening hours of August 23, 2007, Jennifer's 4-month struggle to be free from her abusive husband came to a violent end. Scott had been hiding in his mother's apartment and emerged from downstairs and threatened Jennifer with a gun in front of his children. He grabbed her by the hair and drug her down the front steps of the house and shot her. Jennifer died at the scene and Scott fled in Jennifer's van, and using witness statements and security footage, the police tracked the vehicle to an abandoned plot a few blocks away from the house. When authorities approached the vehicle, they were surprised to find Scott's deceased body in the driver's seat. He had shot himself in the head. Jennifer and her children were met by many unnecessary and avoidable obstacles in their plight to be free from Scott's abuse. Although this information highlights those obstacles and gaps in services to crime victims, it should be clear that the actions of Scott alone caused the untimely and violent end of the life of a beloved mother of 3. This case was included in the May 2021 bill, Jennifer's Law, that I discussed in my previous video about Jennifer Dulos, to show patterns of controlling and abusive behavior may not involve physical violence, but are nevertheless a form of domestic abuse. Unfortunately, we are still losing the battle against domestic violence. We have a long way to go. According to the Department of Public Safety in 2006, there were a total of 135 murders in the state, 25, 18.15%, of which were identified as domestic related. Although many of the attitudes and reactions to domestic violence have changed externally over the past 2 decades, many of the same internal attitudes and beliefs have remained stagnant and unchanged within our society. The laws will continue to evolve as we learn how to better protect battered persons. But it is time for the attitudes and beliefs of the professionals who deliver services to domestic violence victims to change as well. Leaving an abuser is the most dangerous time for a woman. It is estimated that about 80% of murders happen in the first 6 months after leaving. Looking at Scott's coercively controlling behavior pre-separation and his stalking behavior post-separation, and the lengths he would go to get Jennifer back within his control, using both the criminal justice system and the family court system to track her down and entrap her, shows yet again the close correlation between coercive control and homicide. According to Jennifer's own children, having experienced coercive control both as a child and as an adult, I did not know I was being abused because it didn't fit the description I had learned. If these behaviors had been defined as abuse under the law, I would have known what was happening to me was wrong. To me, the most important outcome would be for judges, lawyers, police, and anyone who deals with domestic violence victims to be retrained to understand all the variety of tactics abusers use to destroy their victims, not just the physical violence. If you or someone you know is in an abusive situation, call the National Helpline at 1-800-799-SAFE or text START to 88788. Everyone deserves a healthy relationship.